Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 5. We present material about standardized testing. Before starting, I will introduce the speakers. I'm Andina Prisma Anugrah Putri as the first speaker, and then Ahmad Farhan as the second speaker, and then the third speaker is Ihza Irkhami, and finally Dwijayanti as the fourth speaker. Okay, here's an outline. First, we will discuss advantages and disadvantages of standardized tests. Then the next about developing a standardized test which will be divided into 6 steps in it. And lastly, we will discuss about standardized language proficiency testing. Well, we will start to discuss the first material, which is the advantages and disadvantages of standardized tests, which will be delivered by myself. Standardization can also mean the use of systematic procedures, administration, and assessment. Furthermore, many standardized tests, especially large-scale tests, are norm reference whose purpose is to place test takers on continuum across multiple scores and to differentiate test takers from the relative ranking. And then for your information, this is characteristic of a standardized test. The first one is standard-based. The second one is product of research and development. The third one is systematic scoring and administration procedures. And the last one is reference to norm. Most elementary and secondary schools around the world use standardized achievement tests to measure students' mastery of the standards or competencies. They have been prescribed for specified grade levels, exceed requirements, and extend to further levels. Administration to large groups can be accomplished within reasonable time limits. In this case, of multiple choice formats, scoring procedures are streamlined or for either scannable computerized scoring or hand scoring with a whole punch grid for fast turnaround time. These advantages must also be taken into account. In this case of multiple choice formats, many test takers quickly assume that such instruments are valid and reliable. They have the appearance of authority, whether or not an appropriate construct validation of the instrument has been performed. In another drawback is the inappropriate use of such tests. For example, using an overall proficiency test as an achievement test simply because of the convenience of the standardization. And this is the advantages. The first one is readily available product. The second one is easily administered to large groups. The third one is streamlined scoring and reporting procedures. And the last one is a previously validated product. And this is the disadvantages. The first one is possibly inappropriate use of such tests. And the second one is potential test biases. The third one is indirect testing might not elicit a good procedure sample of performance. And the last one is multiple choice format have the appearance of authority. So that's all from me. Will be followed by the second presenter. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ihza Irkhami. I will explain step 1 and step 2. Step 1. Determine the purpose of objective of the test. This is an example of 5 standardized tests. Most standardized tests are expected to provide high partiality in administration and scoring without unduly compromising validity. The initial outlay of time and money for such a test is significant, but the test is usually designed for repeated use. The first four tests are designed to evaluate the general English ability of those whose native language is not English, targeting the four skills of listening, speaking, and reading and writing. The fifth test, CMPST, locally designed and administered at San Francisco State University, is designed to place already admitted student into an appropriate course in academic writing, with the secondary goal of placing students into a course in grammar editing. The first stage of goal setting might be seen as one in which the consequential validity of the test is foremost in the mind of the developer. It tests as a specific gatekeeping function to forum. Therefore, the criteria for entering the gate must be specific accurately. Next is step 2, design test specification. Before speech can be addressed, comprehensive research must identify a set of constructs underlying the test itself. Tests that don't work are often the product of short-sighted construct validation. Construct validation for the TOEFL is carried out by the staff at the Educational Testing Service. The students of employers are involved in a complex process of reviewing current TOEFL specification. The process can take weeks, months, or even years to complete. To illustrate the design of test page, we focus on the TOEFL. TOEFL is a proficiency test, but many assessment specialists prefer to term ability to proficiency. How you view language makes a difference in how you assess language proficiency. After breaking language competence down into subsets of listening, speaking, reading, and writing, each performance model can be examined on a continuum of linguistic units. These units include phonology, orthography, word sentence, grammar, discourse, and pragmatic feature of language. Oral production tests can test overall conservation, fluency, or pronunciation of a particular component of phonology. Listening comprehension tests can concentrate on a particular feature of language or on overall listening for general meaning. Writing tests can take on an open-ended form with free composition or be structured to elicit anything from correct spelling to discourse level competence. TOEFL IBT has been offering assessment tests that integrate the receptive and productive skill of listening, reading, writing, and speaking. TOEFL include for many years 3 types of performance in its organizational specification: listening, structure, and reading. In 1996, a major step was taken to include written production in the TOEFL IBT by adding slightly modified version of the test of writing English. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, let's start to step 3. Design, select, arrange text item. Okay. One specification for standard test is define the test designing, selection, organizing, test assignment, or items begin. Once the specification for standard testing has been established, the tasks of designing, selecting, and organizing items often adds. Specification acts like blueprint in determining the number and types of items to be met. Let's look at example of ALS Academy rating for illustration of assignment and item construction. Okay, this one. Okay. As you can imagine, this test is challenging. Now, let's assume that specification for this reading and test include an initial reading of about 750 words, followed by multiple true or false question and multiple choice question using as mixture of comprehension, inference, and implication. Okay. Back to point two. Okay. Point two. The specification acts like blueprint. I define the number and types of items to be met. Designer must select the appropriate section according to the predetermining rating difficult specification. Then, the 13th question will assess a number of grammatical, lexical, rhetorical, and semantic parameters, perhaps with a certain proportion of attention to each of them. The inference item will test the ability to read between the lines in the section. And the paraphrasing the original needs to be worth the challenges the reader, but it's not too simple. Okay, let's start to step 4. Step 4. Make appropriate evaluation of different kind of item. This concept of item is 1. Item facility, item discrimination, and item difficulty. Okay. As indicated by discussion here, such calculation provide useful information for class tests, but sometimes the time and effort involved might not be practical, especially if the test is based on the test. The class will only be held once. This index is, however, essential for standard multiple choice tests designed for the commercial market and are administered multiple times and administered in different forms. Being so many be practical, especially if the class-based test, the best test in the one-time test. But for standardized multiple choice tests designed to be market commercial or administered in different form, this index is feasible. Okay, next slide. Okay. For other types of response format, namely oral and written responses, different formats of evaluation are important. The principle of practicality and reliability stand out along with the concept of facility. Practicality issues in the item include clarity of direction, theming of the exam, ease of administration, and how much time it took access responses. Reliability is major player in case where more than one goal score in use and to lesser extent when one goal score has to evaluate the test over a long time span, which can lead and slump is standard. Okay. Next, reliability is the agree with an assessment to produce stable and consistent result. Okay. Facility are also key to the validity and success of an item test. 1. Unclear direction. Second, complex language. And next is unclear topic. And next, unclear data. And the last is culturally based information. Can a lot of higher level of difficulty desired?
Step 5 is specific scoring procedures and reporting formats. A systematic assembly of test items is pre-select, arrangement, and sequence, all of which are validated to conform to an expected difficulty level. Short, yet a test that can then be scored accurately and reported back to test takers and institutions efficiently. For an example of scoring procedures, let's take a look at the University of Michigan SNAP. The standard form of the test is divided into three parts. There are first, reading comprehension, second, listening comprehension, and third, four different subsections on grammar, clause, vocabulary, and reading comprehension. Score reports provide spared results for each of the three parts, plus a final score that is essentially a mean of the three section scores, an additional mean of the three section scores, an additional option available at select test counters is a speaking test, and a score is provided for the speaking test where applicable. How are those scores calculated? So part 2 and 3 are multiple choice items and are machine scored. Part 1 is a composition that involves two human scores who use a rubric to achieve a final result. Okay, step 6 is perform ongoing concept validation studies. Any standardized test, once developed, must be accompanied by systematic process corroboration of its effectiveness and by steps toward its improvement from administration to administration. This research is especially true of tests that are produced in aquatic forms, that is, forms that are reliable across several administrations. A score on a subsequent form of a test has the same validity of interpretability as a score on the original. All of the tests we've examined here include programs of construct validation, especially in view of the need to periodically produce new forms of the test. To give you an example of such construct validation, we look at person's PTE academic. The PTE requires test takers to respond to a number of different tasks in three sections. There are speakers and writing, and then reading and listening. The texts range from select and limited response to extensive and extended production. Summarize a spoken written text, give a personal introduction, describe an image, detail a lecture, write an essay. And the test therefore use both right or wrong and particle credit scoring. The next is standardized language proficiency testing. Test of language ability purpose a comprehensive definition of the specific competencies that comprise overall language ability. They also affect and are affected by institutional goals. The specification for the TOEFL provides an illustration of an operation definition of ability for assessment purposes. This is not the only way to conceptualize the concept. Swine offered a multidimensional view of proficiency assessment by referring to three linguistic chains. There are grammar, discourse, and social linguistics, which can be assessed by means of oral, multiple choice, and written response. Swain's conception was not meant to be an exhaustive analysis of ability, but rather to serve as an operational framework for constructing proficiency assessments. Another definition and conceptualization of ability is suggested by the ACTFL Association, mentioned earlier, as ACTFL takes a holistic and more unitary view of proficiency in describing four levels. There are superior, advanced, intermediate, and novice. Within each level, descriptions of linguistic speaking, reading, and writing are provided as guidelines for assessment. As an example, the ACTFL guidelines for the superior level for speaking. Thank you. That's all from our group.